Hello and welcome to Boxboard, and tonight we're going to look at the Courts of Stone guide for Legend of the Five Rings role playing. And just a quick flick through and then I'll do a review at the end. Okay, so basically it's the essential guide to castles and politics in Rokugan. As we've come to expect, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful book as usual. Broadly speaking, you've got Welcome to the Courts, which is sort of narrative thing. Then we've got a bit about Imperial Strongholds, which tells us quite a lot about the different castles. So what castles are like, and then some examples of castles, and then a little bit about the Korean clan and a big focus on them. Then we also have a bit about some new rules that you can play and things like that. Then we get War of Words and Shadows. Shadows of Court. How that is, it comes into how court works. Then we get this War of Words and Shadows, which is about the Deer clan, and then it brings in some of the new skills and new equipment and techniques. And then finally we end up with Chapter 3, which is about the Winter Court and basically running a campaign. It's much more aimed at the GM, I suppose. So let's have a look. So first wee bit, I was wrong. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a narrative thing to set the tone. Then we get a bit about how the book's laid out. If you've had any of the other supplements, you'll be very familiar with this. And it goes through a little bit about how castles work. As usual, it is written very clearly, very detailed, and loads of flavour. And there's more than you need here. But that's kind of in the immersive aspect of it, and you know, in this game it's a big bit of it, so it gives you that sense of richness, and it's just really interesting read, to be honest. We've got different sections about things that I'm trying to remember what the different bits do. I should have read that at the beginning. We've got different sort of call out boxes and things, so we've got a few bits that are aimed at our the sidebars that see, GM ones, and then we've got the ones that are sort of more general and things. There's some different bits and pieces. So you can see all the way through, so real world practices, and then a bit about flexible designs and how you can play with that. But there's loads in there about how castles were made. Then there's a bit about the role and different staff responsibilities. A bit about the Winter Court, which is an important idea in the game and in the world. So basically in Rokugan, the winter, during the winters, there's a kind of the Imperial Court holds an annual Winter Court, and I think it goes to different places. So so it's quite, yeah, it's decided. So its location goes to different places, so that's quite good. And what the Winter Court entails, a lot more detail about that in there. I think there's quite a lot more to it. Then sample castles. Now this I find really interesting. The layout of this is really cool. So it tells you a bit about the castle, tells you what strengths and weaknesses are. A lot of the time you get a picture, not all the time as far as I can make out, but a lot of the time. A bit about the culture of the castle and how that works. You know, you get the call out box as well. Then what attracts visitors, and is there anything supernatural about it? Is there anything that's a bit weird and wonderful about it? And then some characters from it. And you know, you don't have to keep them in that place. You can nick those characters and play with them in other places. If you're a GM, you might go, well, actually, like I could use them in something else, or adapt that character, which is cool. So we've got, you know, one for I think every clan. But I like this sort of format of bit about it, what it feels like, then why people would go. So as GM, the things you're going to talk about and maybe use as a seed, and then supernatural phenomena can make it, you know, that add an aspect if you want to, and you don't have to. And they do that for quite a few of them. And like I said, sometimes you get a picture and a map, sometimes you don't. So with Hida Palace we didn't really get one, but with Shiro, I think we don't get one. But is that no, Kamimura? We get one. And you know, there's yeah, a big range and lots of them, which is kind of cool. And that's quite nice because you sort of find yourself going, oh, I can see a good variety of things, because the castles are kind of where a lot of the action is going to take place in the game. So it's good to have a good selection that you can play with and that you can work with. And the maps actually are very useful because it helps to give a sort of sense of, you can use them in game as well. Because there's nothing here that you're going to go, I think they've been quite careful with that. The maps tend to be, they don't have anything, that you're going to necessarily need to cover up, except maybe the stats for those guys, for that guy, I suppose. But they're, it's pretty good, so you could show those to people. Then there's a bit of the Crane clan, quite a lot about it. If I'm honest, the Crane clan's not a clan I've ever really bonded with, but this is quite good, and it's interesting. It's an interesting read. Tells you, a lot of stuff you need to know about the clan, how it works, and what is, what its traditions are. And for me as a GM, I guess it's useful because it's not a clan that I've naturally got, and having the level of detail here means that if there's a player who wants to play Crane, I can actually I can read around it quite a lot and work around it, which is kind of cool. Lot about them, and then we go into, if I can find it, a bit about their lands. You get the map again, and you get a bit about the different places and what's going on in them. Then we get this idea of Masters of Court. Now, Masters of Court basically goes through how the court works and a lot about the different aspects of court life. Shadows of Court is kind of like the intrigue side, and it's an area that this game really has got a lot of social conflict that it could be quite interesting, could be played really well. And actually, I think it's this idea of the world, this idea of how court works, and that is something that's underused sometimes, because it needs to be more than just an Asian version of D&D. And actually, the depth in this game, a lot of it comes from this sort of social and this social bit of it, I think, and the mechanics. I think it's really good. So it's quite. I think it's really, really nice. Then we've got the War of Words and Shadows, which is about the Deer Clan. Deer Clan are odd in their world because they basically believe in a dynamic balance. So they are trying to constantly keep things in balance, and it's an interesting clan. It's one of those ones that I think actually that could be quite. I like them as a sort of clan. I think there's a lot there that you could play with and would be quite interesting as a player. And I think that this bit I find really interesting about how they work. And then we get a little bit about a bit of the characters and schools. Yeah, so we got a wee bit more here, and adventure seeds, how they relate to the other clans. We get a bit about the different, attributes they get through being minor clan, then what their family is, and then we get the different. Then we get this bit, which is different schools. Now these aren't Deer Clan; these are a variety of different things. There's a bigger weight with these in Shinobi, so that we've got a Death Dealer, which is just kind of cool, and it's really, really nice. We've got a Spy Master, which is also kind of cool and very, very nice in a different kind of way. We get the Bureaucrat. I'm not so keen on that, but I can see people might go for that. We get the Shadow School for Ikoma, which is Lion Clan. This one I found quite interesting. I thought that was quite cool. Some of the things that they've got could be an interesting mix. Then we get the Mercenary Ninjas. Now these struck me as being actually quite a lot of people want to play these. I suspect they're one of those things people love a ninja. And actually, you can see how they would work, and they're quite the rules are quite flavoursome. Artists, sorry, you can see how they work because the rest of the book. I actually have to say that because they're the way that the rest of the book is structured. There's some ideas in there that make you go, I can see how a ninja would actually be appropriate and would work quite well in the game. Because there's an emphasis in the shadows and working from the shadows in this book. So you've got the sort of the court side, and then you've got the intrigue side, and then you've got the assassination side, effectively. Shiba Artist School, Matchmaker, which is Deer Clan Sheikah, which is really their courtier / Shugenja, and then they've got Spear Dancers, which are a very specific kind of Yojimbo here about trying to and bring balance in. Quite an interesting one as well. One of the ones I really liked was the Chronicler. I find that quite an interesting one. Maybe that's the GM in me, where basically they look at the stories from the past and try to deduce the patterns that will happen in the future. These are historians, effectively, but kind of a little bit more than that, obviously. And then we get the Yojimbo School, Yasugi Yojimbo, which are they take caravans and things like that. And I thought this was quite a cool little fact. I thought these were quite flavoursome, because I can see how I would use them, and I would see how they would fit into a campaign quite well. Then some new advantages and disadvantages that fit quite well. I love this one, effective harmlessness. Somebody just pretends to be a bit of a buffoon. Some politicians, take note. We're on to you. Famously neutral, and then some new passions as well. And we get then some new adversities, and these all fit with the theme of the court. I would say they fit really nicely. Then we get new anxieties, again fitting with the court. And then what was really, I thought was quite nice, was some new samurai heritages, which are, let me see, these are for the Korean. So these are connections to the Korean or to mysterious underworld of the shinobi. So if you've got somebody who's in a shinobi role, you would roll here for their heritage. Maybe a Korean, you would roll for their heritage again. Then some interesting new items, quite a lot of new items and how they work and what their importance is. And then we also have, if I can find, some new weapons, shinobi weapons, because the shinobi, a lot of new classes are shinobi, and the shinobi armor, and then also we get new techniques, and a lot of these again are related to the shinobi things. So you've got ninjutsu, quite a lot of ninjutsu bits and pieces going on there. And that's good, because the original book, I remember something, there's not a lot here for our Scorpion guys. There's not a lot going on, I felt, and actually now there's something more, it's that bit deeper. Then we've got a bit of rituals, which are kind of cool, and we've got the Air Shuji and Earth Shuji, as you'd expect, a couple of them fire, and water and void. And then we get into the game's discourse, which is really about it's really a GM thing. And again, it's helping you practically how to run a more court focused game, which is quite is quite cool. So a more intrigue focused kind of game, I suppose. And I thought that was quite cool. So even things like player knowledge of Rokugani culture, and things that can come into the way, because this is quite an alien world for a lot of people. A bit about romance, then a bit about how, because there are new classes with lots of shinobi, and there's lots of more shinobi classes. How do you play them? How do you work them into the game? How do you make best use of them? Some new titles, and then a little bit about how do you spend opportunity. And then we get a wee bit about courtesy, because that's going to be a big part of this, and some bit about bonds. So these are, and this is kind of new rule effect. These are so you, unless I'm badly mistaken, yeah, you spend some XP to do this, and you create a bond, and you can use that, which is quite nice. Then a bit about how to assemble court, and really goes through it step by step, which is quite nice. And then NPC, developing NPC motivations, and what you do with it. There's a court sheet, which I'm assuming you can get online as well. Excuse me. So lots there. Coming in, how many pages is that? 100 and 144, 45. Nice book. So what do I think of it? What do I think of Courts of Stone? I think as a supplement, it's got a lot going for it if you want to run that kind of campaign. I think if you're interested in developing a court-based campaign, it's really going to come into its own. And if you're interested in that sort of the social conflict aspect of the game, it's a really, really, really essential bit of kit, because there's a lot going on there that fleshes that out. Some really helpful advice for GMs to get their heads around how to do that effectively, and some directions to go on how to run something like the Winter Court, which is where you would really want to be in the centre of the action. I think it's also really useful for the new classes. I think the new classes are extremely helpful for a number of players. I think they'll find them quite interesting and exciting. I think the Deer Clan are a really welcome addition because they've got a slightly different dynamic and mechanic, and they're a little bit different in the way other factions are, certainly in their motivation, which could be really interesting to explore. The castles bit is the castles bit I think is probably the bit that most people will use in to a large extent, because I think it gives you a large range of new locations, so you can really play with that. And the nice thing about it is, because the way it's written, you can decide, well, I want to run a campaign like this. Probably most, if from previous supplements and from the rulebook itself, in Rokugan, most action happens in and around castles, in and around big towns, which are based around castles. So having a good selection of locations that are fleshed out for you, that are quite a wide variety of different styles, means that you can actually select out. That's a good bit of the work done for you if you're building a campaign, and I think that's really, really helpful. As somebody who isn't a massive fan of the Korean clan, I found it useful and interesting, but I must admit, it didn't make me go wow. It was something that I'm glad I have now, because it means that if I encounter a player who's really into the Korean clan, I'm going to be able to communicate with them and point them in the direction of that with a common language, which is great. I would say probably then, how would I rate it? If you're interested, is there something missing? Bonds. I think Bonds is potentially quite interesting as a new rule, or as a new sort of addition. I think it could be quite cool, and how to use those. So there's not an awful lot of seeds in there. So if you're GM coming at this thing, you're going to get a lot of seed plots. You're not going to have that. What you are getting is you're getting a lot of depth. So you're getting a lot of depth, and if you really want to develop your seeds, if you want seeds for campaigns and encounters, you're probably going to need to look somewhere else. But if you've got some ideas and you want to give them a good setting, or you want to explore Shinobi, I would say and the court, I think this is a really good supplement. So in those terms, I think it's a really, really effective supplement, but it's a little bit more niche, depending on the kind of party you've got and depending on the kind of campaign you want to run. Personally, I think it's not got the essentialness of I've forgotten the name. The first supplement came out. I think it's the companion guide to Rokugan, something like that. I think it was pretty essential. It had a lot of seeds in it, which was really good. The Shadowland supplement, I think it's got more mass appeal because it's kind of that, you know, it's very much an eerie. It brings a very big dynamic, you know, mechanic to the game, and I can see people really going to town on that. This one, I think it's a lot more. The people who love it are going to adore it, and the GM for a GM, I think it's a useful guide, not necessarily an essential guide, but it's a useful and welcome addition to the to your resources for the game. Thanks for watching, as ever. We do a fair bit about Legends of the Five Rings and other RPGs, and also a lot of tabletop on Box to Board. And if you don't want to miss that content, please subscribe, and it would be lovely to have you on board. But thank you for watching tonight, and have a great evening.